It was a quiet afternoon, one of those rare moments when the ocean seemed to exhale in peace. The sun, now beginning its descent toward the horizon, cast a golden hue over the water, reflecting off the ripples as if it were trying to pull every ounce of light into its depths. The small fishing boat, its hull scarred with years of saltwater battles, creaked and swayed gently in the embrace of the sea. But this day, like many before it, would not end like the others. On board was Thomas Ellis, a seasoned fisherman with hands as rough as the ropes he tied and untied daily. His weathered face had known more sunrises than most, and his eyes, those deep blue eyes that reflected the same vastness of the ocean, held stories of the sea, stories few could understand. Ellis was no stranger to the mysteries that lurked below. He had seen things that even he could not explain, but it was on this fateful day that he would encounter something beyond comprehension, something that would forever change his life and leave behind only the faintest of clues. The wind picked up slightly, rustling the seabirds overhead, their calls slicing through the silence. Ellis cast his net, the familiar routine that had been his life for decades. It wasn't supposed to be anything out of the ordinary, just another day of work. But as his net sank deeper into the water, something strange began to happen. The boat shifted. Not in the usual manner of the ocean's ebb and flow, but in a way that felt deliberate, as though the sea itself was tugging at the boat's very soul. Ellis paused, his hand still gripping the rope, his senses heightened. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, a subtle but undeniable feeling that he was no longer alone. The fish were acting differently, panicked, as if they were trying to flee from something that was far more terrifying than the fishermen who had hunted them for years. For a moment, it was as if the world itself held its breath. The water around the boat became unnervingly still, too still. And then, a ripple broke the surface. Small at first, just a faint disturbance, as though something large was stirring beneath. Ellis turned sharply, his heart racing, his instincts on high alert. He had seen the way the ocean behaved when storms were near, but this was different. It was a tension in the water, a pressure building, like the sea was preparing to release something ancient, something hidden. He reached for his radio, the usual precautionary measure before any unusual change in the sea. But before he could speak, something else happened. A dark shadow passed beneath the boat, moving so quickly that it was almost impossible to catch with the naked eye. A shudder ran through the hull. Then, it was gone, vanished into the depths. Ellis stood there, frozen for a moment, the cool wind still tugging at his clothes. He stared down into the water, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Something wasn't right. His gut twisted with a sense of impending doom. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the calm returned. But that was not the end. The days that followed would bring a chilling revelation, one that would haunt not just Thomas Ellis, but an entire fishing community, a revelation that would remain a mystery for decades. It started with the disappearance of Ellis himself. Weeks passed, and no one could reach him. His boat was found, drifting aimlessly, the engine still running, but Thomas was nowhere to be found. No distress call had been made, no signs of struggle. Just an empty boat, like a ghostly shell abandoned by its owner. The crew that came to search couldn't understand what had happened, but when they boarded the boat, they found something odd. A small, waterproof notebook, partially submerged in the cabin, soaked, but still legible. Inside the notebook were the last entries of Thomas Ellis, each one more disturbing than the last. The final entry was chilling, written just hours before his disappearance. "I saw it today. I can't explain it, but I felt it. Something moved beneath me. Something huge. Something not of this world. I don't know what it is, but I know it's watching me. It's not just the fish. It's something else. Something ancient. Something that has been here long before us. I don't know if I'll make it out. I don't know if anyone will." The words were barely legible by the time they were found, smudged and stained with seawater, but they were enough to send a ripple of fear through the small coastal town where Thomas Ellis had lived. What was he talking about? What creature had he seen? And why did he think it was watching him? These questions lingered, unanswered, as more stories came to light. A few days after the disappearance, an old fisherman who had once worked alongside Ellis came forward. He claimed to have seen something similar years before, something that he had kept secret out of fear of being branded insane. He described seeing a massive creature, its scales shimmering like dark metal gliding beneath the waves just off the coast. He said it was like nothing he had ever seen, not like any known sea creature, and that it was watching, waiting. But the mystery deepened when another fisherman reported hearing strange noises at night, emanating from the same waters where Ellis had disappeared. The sounds were unlike any marine creature, a deep, vibrating hum that seemed to come from the very depths of the ocean. It was a low frequency that seemed to resonate with something deep inside, something primal and unnerving. As the weeks turned into months, the local authorities tried to suppress the growing fear, attributing the disappearances and strange events to natural causes. But the stories persisted. More fishermen vanished. Others spoke of shadowy shapes lurking just beneath the surface of the water. It wasn't long before the stories of a creature beneath the waves began to take on a life of their own. Some said it was a giant eel. Others claimed it was a forgotten sea serpent from the pages of old mythologies, while a few swore it was something even older, a creature from before man, a being that had dwelled in the deep for millennia, hidden from the light of day. Yet, no one could offer definitive proof. The ocean, vast and mysterious, kept its secrets close to the chest. Years passed, and the legend of Thomas Ellis and the creature beneath the waves faded into the background of coastal life. New generations of fishermen took to the sea, and life moved on. But the legend of the creature remained a whisper carried on the wind, a shadow beneath the water. In the end, no one knew for sure what had happened to Thomas Ellis, or the others who had vanished. But one thing was certain: the sea held its secrets tightly, and sometimes it wasn't enough to simply be a fisherman. Sometimes the ocean demands more.